what does my legacy look like? What does the future look like for the company? Are my kids or my grandkids going to work here one day? And sadly, a lot of pest control companies don't make it that far.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Especially in a family business, the biggest thing is we have to learn the business and truly gain respect from those managers. And our executive team is fantastic. And they truly drive the business on a day-to-day standpoint from sales to service. And earning their respect is something that I always strive for. And the only way to do that is through action and earning that trust by proving what you can do.
You're listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Alan Draper and Eric Bassett.
Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to help you become a bug money millionaire. Today's episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 course designed to help you start and grow your pest control company. I am your host, Eric Bassett. Alan is traveling today, but this will not be a solo episode because we do have a guest today. But before we introduce them, I just want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. And one last reminder, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, go to Bug Bucks, that is BUGBUX, because we love to hear from our listeners. So today I would like to welcome Austin Burns. Austin is the Director of Operations at Burns Pest Elimination. What started out as a father and son business in 1983 with 43 customers and one service truck has turned into a $25 million venture for the Burns family. Welcome to the show, Austin. We are so glad you could join us today. How you doing, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you. I mean, we haven't connected before. And when I read some of the information on this introduction, I'm thinking, dude, $25 million. That's just wild, thinking about the scale of that company. A lot of our listeners are within the first few months to first few years of growing their operations. So a lot of the guys that are listening to this podcast have dreams and goals to get to that size. So how did you get involved in the pest control company? Obviously, this is a family business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment and something that I'm very grateful to be a part of and very thankful. And so 40 years ago, actually 40 years in business this year, 2023 marks our 40th anniversary. So it started as one truck and 43 customers and $800 worth of annual revenue. And that was my grandpa, my dad, and my uncle. All three of them started it. My grandpa actually was in real estate at the time and sold a piece of property to a friend of his who happened to own a small pest control company. And so his commissions back then was actually to start this venture. My grandpa had been an entrepreneur in the past. He owned a boat business, which my dad and my uncle worked for through high school. So entrepreneurship was nothing new to the family. And my dad was off doing his thing. My uncle was off doing his thing kind of in different states across the country. And my grandpa saw this as an opportunity to get all of the family back to Arizona and be together as one big family unit. So when he sold that property, he traded his commissions for actually a piece of the business, which was one truck and 43 customers. So what started out as one route, my dad and my uncle immediately started working on the business and really just divide and conquer, sales and service and working all hours of the night, doing all the things. And now here we are 40 years later, servicing all of Arizona and Southern Nevada with just under 200 employees. And just very thankful, very grateful to be a part of such an amazing family and our amazing team that we have around us. Every one of our staff is truly part of the Burns family. And without them, we wouldn't be where we are today.
100%. Man, I know that there's a lot of guys listening. And so Natura is a family business. It's me and my brother-in-law and my sister. And we've had other various, cousins and other people that have kind of come and worked for us. And so we really do feel like it's also a family business. And I know there's a lot of listeners who it's the same thing, right? The guy's selling, he's teching, his wife runs the office, and they're thinking, man, what does my legacy look like? What does the future look like for the company? Are my kids or my grandkids going to work here one day? And sadly, a lot of pest control companies don't make it that far, right? Yeah. And so to look at your guys' impact that you've had, both as a family and an impact you guys have had on the market there, I mean, dude, that's just so crazy. And I'm dying to know, I mean, was this something that was planned for you? Like, do you feel like, you were always kind of destined to jump into the family business? How did you get wrapped up in joining and actually working for Burns?
Yeah. To be honest, for me personally, I did not think I was destined to be in the business. However, I would say most children, obviously I had the summer job, working here at the company, whether it was sweeping the parking lot or cleaning the toilets or even going out, with our termite techs and getting on the drill or digging some trenches. And I really didn't want anything to do with it, when I was a teenager. I was actually racing motorcycles at the time. And actually turned professional racing motorcycles, did that for a few years as I was going to college. And then I got injured and it was time to find a real job. And I came to work for the family business at that time, which was 11 years ago now. But if you would have asked me when I was 16, 17, no, I didn't think I would be part of the organization. However, my dad and my uncle always knew that we would. So we have myself as well as my cousin and my sister here. And it is just that. It is a legacy company. And it's something that my dad and my uncle always knew deep down that they were building a legacy to leave behind for their children. And quite honestly, now being a father of two is something that I look forward to leaving my mark on the organization and the business and leaving that legacy for the next family members, for my kids and my cousin's kids as well, is something that we're super proud of and something that we look forward to continuing the Burns legacy for the next 40 years.
Oh, dude, absolutely, man. And I can't imagine, I mean, the impact you guys have had already, in the last 40 years, thinking about how things are going to go for the next, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It's wild when you think about those possibilities.
Yeah.
You were involved in the business a little bit here and there. It kind of reminds me of my nephews. I've got a couple nephews that will bring in to help us do a couple different projects and stuff around the office. And, they don't love pest control. I mean, I don't know if anybody actually gets in the industry thinking, man, pest control is so cool. I'd love to do that. Right. It just comes out and like snags you, comes out and grabs you. At what point did the opportunity at Burns change from being kind of like a part-time thing that you did as a teenager to being a full-time job? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, quite honestly, it was during my college. I was going to Arizona State University where I got my bachelor's degree. And yeah, pest control is not a glamorous industry by any means. And it's not something that a lot of people, when you talk to them about it, hey, I own a pest control company, they're like, wow, really? What's that include? And what is that? And for me, I love our industry and the people around it is truly what I'm passionate about. And man, this is an amazing industry, amazing group of like-minded individuals who are so open and willing to share and help each other. And that's what I love most. And so, yeah, when I was going to college, it was really the business aspect and the people aspect of the business that truly got me interested. And what became my passion is the people that we have and the family that we formed. And man, I just love the business side of it and pushing myself to be better every day and seeing tangible results within the organization and within the business based off of changes that you've made is something that really, really drives me every single day. And just taking my business classes through college, I really just started to learn how to implement strategy and change and see those tangible results and track them. And that's when I really saw this as a full-time career. And hey, this is my time to make my legacy and leave my mark on this company.
And did you have another job that you had in mind, or, was this kind of like a secondary choice? Or once you started kind of getting into those college courses, do you think, dude, like I could turn this into a really good opportunity with the family business?
Yeah, I had nothing else in mind. Like I said, I was racing motorcycles professionally for a couple of years. And then after my injuries, I quit that and obviously needed a job. And I came to work as a customer service rep. My dad said, hey, we'll put you on the phones. And I was still going to college at the time. And it was just an interim thing to figure out if this was something that I really wanted to do. And at the time, I had no other interests in mind. However, I still didn't know if the family business was something that I was going to be in forever. And it wasn't until about a year later, as I started to finish up college and truly grasp the opportunities inside the organization and inside business in general, and how I could truly leave my legacy behind and influence change and just drive us to the next level, was something I was super excited for. After about that 12-month period, then I was all in. I was locked in and ready to go and ready to take this for another 40 years and leave behind that legacy for my kids.
Definitely. So, you go to college, you get roped into this customer service position that's kind of like tentative. I hear this so much with pest control guys. They take some job doing something, customer service, technician, whatever that situation is. And then it slowly just becomes this lifelong passion and career. It's the same thing for me. I started off in door to door. I had no idea that 15 years later I own my own pest control company and have this podcast and be doing all this stuff, and it sneaks up on you in such a crazy way. So you went from service rep on the phones.
Yep.
What was your next step in the business? Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so then I went into sales, and I started doing inside and outbound sales for the organization. And then my dad and my uncle wanted me to learn more on the technical side, so I got pushed over to our technical side, handling some route management, working with our service managers, and just learning the ins and out of service and service protocols, and trying to get well versed there. And ended up getting my associate certified entomologist certification over there. Really just learning the technical side. And then I went back into the operations as a manager. So now managing customer service reps and our inside sales department, and really just growing and learning every aspect of the business. One thing that my dad and my uncle have always been very keen on is making sure that we learn all aspects. It's not something where I'm just going to get, hey, yes, my last name is Burns. However, you still need to work from the bottom and get to learn everything from a day-to-day operational standpoint, so that one day when you're running the ship, you truly know what the day-to-day is like.
I think that's so important. The philosophy that you're talking about, where it's not just your name, it's not your position or your title, it's the experience that you've been able to have over the years in all these different departments. That's where the respect from your colleagues comes from, right? It's, you've got the experience, right? You're an associate certified entomologist. You've done the customer service, you've done the sales, you've done the technical side of things, right? You have the actual formal schooling to understand strategy. I mean, that's a really good combination for respect in a professional environment, if I've ever seen one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're the director of operations now, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
And how long have you been in that role?
Been in that role for about 3 years now, overseeing all of our operations. And yeah, you're 100% right. Especially in a family business, the biggest thing is of a business of our size is making sure that with our last name that we have to learn the business and truly gain respect from those managers. And our executive team is fantastic, and they truly drive the business on a day-to-day standpoint, from sales to service. And like I said, our executive team is wonderful, and they truly push this business to the next level day in and day out. And as a family member, as the Burns coming in, as a young kid, earning their respect is something that I always strive for. And the only way to do that is through action and earning that trust by proving what you can do.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so huge when you meet somebody that has a really high level of execution, like people ask me a lot, they're talking about like developing leaders within their business, or like I'll have, my technicians that ask me, hey, Eric, how do I move up in the company? What do I do here? And a lot of those guys focus a lot on strategy. And I think strategy is great. It's like they want to have a career path. They want to know exactly how to get there. And I'll tell guys a lot like, hey, the guys that I really like to develop in my company are the ones that have a really high level of execution. Yep. You just got to go out and do it, right? And you got to do it with the best of your ability, and you got to be humble, and you got to be hungry, and you got to go out and get work done, right? And you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes could be good for you if you learn from them, right?
Yep.
And so I think you provide a really, really good philosophy and principle there that, to get to where you are now, you've just done a lot, right? It wasn't your last name. It wasn't luck. It wasn't anything else other than you just going out, putting your shoulder to the grindstone and just getting things squared away, which I think is just awesome. And I want to know, what does your day-to-day look like as director of operations? I mean, you've got an operation that services 35,000 customers, over 200 employees. What's the day-to-day as a director of operations look like for you?
Yeah. So I will say my role is a little unique because it is a family business. And so, yes, my title is director of operations. However, as a family member and still as a small business, as a family business, it encompasses a lot of things. So it's not just overseeing operations. Day to day, I oversee our operations managers who handle everything from our customer service team, our billing, our credit collections team, our inside sales team. And then I assist our technical director overseeing all of our service departments all across all of our branches, as well as overseeing our branch managers across all of our different verticals. And as a Burns, it is a lot of ins and outs just day to day, whether it's managing the building, getting repairs done on the building, and vehicles and vehicle acquisitions and chemical purchases and insurance negotiations and just all that stuff, as well as a family member. And as a family business, all of our family is still involved in all of those decisions. So it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And from day to day, it varies. It's putting out fires and dealing with whatever needs dealt with, as well as making sure that our operations managers have a clear direction and that we're striving to meet each of our goals.
That's awesome. And I'm kind of imagining this org chart as you're talking, right? This probably somewhat massive org chart. And, it sounds like you've got these frontline managers that are, your direct reports, right? Guys that are reporting to you. And you've got to have an ear and information on all the different things that they are required to leverage, right? All the stuff that they're trying to get their departments to take care of. How do you keep things organized? How do you keep things top of mind? I'm thinking you've got to be split in so many different ways. How do you keep the conversations with all these different managers, quick and effective, and how do you delegate?
Yeah. And then honestly, that is the toughest part of the job is not getting overwhelmed where I'm not able to do what I need to do in the business to move the needle forward, right? To institute change and bring new processes and new strategy and new business plans, to the table. So I will say that is 100% our executive team. So we have 10 members on our executive team that sit at the top of the company that truly drive each and every one of our verticals, from commercial sales, residential sales, technical director, IT, data, marketing, you name it. So it is having conversations with them and, quite honestly, putting a lot of trust into them. And many of them have been with the business longer than I have. They've been here 20, 30 years. And so they have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and our team is amazing. Going back to what you said earlier, knowledge is nothing without action, right? Some people say knowledge is power. And in my opinion, you can have all the knowledge, but if you're not willing to put that knowledge into action, then what good is it? And that's a philosophy that I strive to live by every single day. And yeah, it's our executive team. We have great communication. We have a great internal process in which we make sure all of our business strategy stays in alignment. We have some outside leadership and communication development coaches that work with our business on just helping us achieve those goals of communication and alignment and making sure that everyone is on the same page, pushing together for the common goal of the company. It's a lot to juggle. Sometimes I don't juggle at all and stuff gets lost. Absolutely. I'm not perfect by any means, but without our executive team truly striving and pushing the day-to-day downwards to the rest of our team members, man, we'd be lost without them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, a company of that scale, when you talk about trying to make sure that you're aligned, that you have the same philosophies, that you communicate effectively, department to department. I mean, it's wild on that scale. I mean, I know companies that are a tenth of your size that struggle with those things.
Yeah.
Struggle with delegation, struggle with communication, struggle with empowering leaders and maintaining the degree of how you're going to do your service. I mean, you've got 35,000 customers that get serviced by a Burns technician, right? And you have to ensure that all of those customers not only receive a good experience, but that it's a consistent experience every single time, right? And, I'm just looking at and thinking about the scope of that type of organization and how much clarity needs to be there, right? Between those communications. So, it's whenever I look at organizations that are this size and this scale, that's really what kind of fascinates me. It's looking at kind of the org chart and the communication levels and who reports to who and kind of how everything's organized, because companies can be made or broken by miscommunications or bad communications or disorganization.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So, one thing that I wanted to do here before I forget to do it, I got to give you guys some credit. So, the producer of the podcast sent me over this PCT, Pest Control Technologies article, And dude, I think this is so awesome. So I'm gonna read this out here before I forget. So this was published August 2nd of this year, August 2nd of 2023. And the article says Burns Pest recognizes 40 years by offering lifetime services to longest customer. So after 4 decades, the Phoenix-based company has grown to have more than 200 employees and 35,000 customers serving Arizona and Nevada. And it's got a picture of you guys with a customer. And how long has that customer been on service?
So the house we've been servicing for 38 years. The original customer was the mother of who owns it now. So it was the gentleman's childhood home. He lived there with his mom. His mom since passed away, and he inherited the home, and it's now him and his wife who lived there, and they continued service even after the mother passed. And 38 years with not a lapse in service at this home. So for our 40th year, we wanted to give back to the community that's given so much to us as a family and as a business. And we for the rest of their time that they're at that home, they're going to get free pest control for life.
Oh man, I mean, talk about the impact that you have on your customer base, right? I mean, we talk about the lifetime value of customers, and how to breed good retention and loyalty with door-to-door sales, all these other things that are coming on that just kind of snag your customers out of your market. Yep. Meanwhile, you guys have this customer's been with you for 38 straight years, which just seems wild to me. I've got, Natura is coming up on 10 years. It'll be our 10-year anniversary coming up here in the fall. And we were thinking about something nice that we can do for like our customers that have been with us the entire time, right?
Yep.
And just imagining what it would be like to have a customer there for 28 more years on top of that 10 years is just so crazy. Yeah. What would you say? I mean, obviously you gave this customer free pest control for life, which I think is phenomenal, but do you guys know what the average lifespan of your customers are?
Yeah. Well, first off, congratulations on 10 years. That's an amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So, our average retention, quite honestly, it's not 38 years. It's
sure.
not, but our average residential retention is about 8.5 years. That is still great, especially in today's market and the volatility, especially in the housing market of people selling and buying homes in Phoenix and in Arizona in general. We have a very up and down housing market, a lot of new people coming in and a lot of people leaving as well. So our average retention is about 8.5 years on our residential customer side. And it wouldn't be possible, going back to what you said, without consistent service. And when Grandpa started the company 40 years ago, our motto was service makes the difference. And we still stand true to that today. And the reason that we are able to retain a customer and keep a customer for 38 years is developing systems and protocols for literally everything that we do. And when you look at successful businesses, even outside of pest control, they all systemize everything. And there's systems in place for a reason, and it's to uphold consistency. And at the end of the day, to maintain that value that you are providing your clients.
Man, 8.5 years, as an average lifespan for a customer. I mean, the guys that are listening to this podcast would love to have that kind of the retention, right? To get that kind of ROI lifespan out of a customer would just be phenomenal. And what you said rings so true to me. That philosophy, service makes the difference. We talk about a lot of retention tools and tactics. Guys will post questions in our Facebook group like, hey, how do I deal with these door-to-door knockers? How do I deal with customers that are having a tough time with whatever the situation is, in inflation and rising costs and raising our prices and sending out communications to that. And there's a lot of different tactics that we talk about, but really when it comes down to it, your customers appreciate the service you provide the most, right? Yep. If you can provide a really good service and you can provide good communication and you can provide a consistent, personalized approach to the customers that you service, those customers stick around and they understand the price increases, they understand the ups and downs of the market and they understand a lot of other things. And man, 8.5 years, you guys are definitely doing something right. And if it's that philosophy, I think that's huge. I love that you mentioned, of course. Credit to you guys, well-deserved. I love that you mentioned processes, procedures. proven methods. You know, when you've been in business for 40 years, I mean, safe to say that you guys have probably gone through your own trial and error, you know, different mistakes here and there, right? Before you realize, hey, we should have a standardized process for this, you know? Um, and we had a situation with one of our customers recently. You know, they sent us a review, like a bad review, right? And they get this 1-star review in, and we don't get a lot of 1-star reviews. You know, review wise, we're really good, and you know, we have a 4.9 rating, and we get this 1-star review, and the customer has like chronologically listed out every single engagement they've had, you know, over the last couple of months, right? And they started out at the beginning saying, Natura Pest Control used to be the best company. We love them. They're so great. It was awesome. But things didn't turn out this way the last experience. And they listed out chronologically exactly what was wrong. And I thought, wow, number one, I'm lucky that this customer even took the time to do this, right? But number two, like as I'm reading through this stuff, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's our process for that? You know, what's our process here, right? Like the technician had an issue with the product that they were going to apply at the house, and there were some questions there. And the technician didn't have a clear line of action on what they should do about it, or a clear line of communication to their supervisor. And so they didn't have a confident answer to tell the customer what they could or couldn't do. And the customer got upset about it, right? And that whole thing cascaded into the craziest customer negative experience. And when I see situations like that, that's the first thing I think about is, okay, at what point in our process and procedures, our standard operating procedures, where did we mess up here? And was the mistake that we had because we don't have a standard operating procedure, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you might have to dig back a little bit, but and I feel bad even asking you this question, but what do you feel like is the most recent event that you guys have had that really highlighted either the benefit of having a standard operating procedure, or maybe the impetus of making a standard operating procedure for something? What would you say?
That's a great question, and I got to think on it. I think we always look as our business, and maybe it's not one specific event that's coming to my mind right now. We've had 40 years to develop these processes and procedures and our SOP, and my dad and my uncle have learned from experience. 40 years of experience allows you to really create great SOPs based off of previous experiences that you've had. And one thing that we always do every year is really look at where we can be better. And we're always striving to continue to improve our processes. And I think that's one thing that really differentiates us in the marketplace and has allowed us to continue to grow. Of those 40 years, we've had growth every single year. We've never had a negative year in business as far as growth is concerned. And the way that we do that is we're always striving to better our processes, better our procedures, and make sure that we are providing the best experience that we can to our customers. And so customer retention is one. I know we talked about it earlier. That's one thing that's on our strategic planning for this year, for 2023, where we are looking at our customer retention in depth of when a customer calls in that wants to leave us, what are we doing to retain that customer, to save that customer, win back campaigns, all of that stuff. And not that it's really been a huge negative in our business by any means, but it's an area of opportunity where we can just be that little percentage better. And so right now, actually, as we speak, that is something that we are doing, is redoing our entire workflow and SOP for customers that call in that want to terminate, and what that looks like at the time, what that looks like, a week from today, and what that win back campaign looks like if we don't retain the customers. So that's one that comes to mind. And again, it's just always, even when you have SOPs, is looking at them and changing them to better serve in today's marketplace and in today's business needs.
That's awesome, man. And, self-evaluation, I think in some instances, it's really hard for business owners. And I think it's really hard for colleagues. And it's hard to have a philosophy, like a core business philosophy that revolves around self-evaluation. Like, hey, how am I doing? What can be improved? And what actions, what steps do I need to take to actually make those improvements, right? Yep. And I love that you actually said area of opportunity, right? I think that a lot of business owners, and maybe not just even pest control operators, but just business owners in general, wait until there's something wrong in the business to fix it, right? They wait for that indicator. It's like, okay, what's going wrong, or what's something that's bad in my business? And this kind of flips that around a little bit, where you say, okay, maybe this isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's not something that we're failing at, but where can we improve? Could this be better, right?
Yep.
And that level of evaluation is really big. I think that really does take companies from kind of the lower tiers, or I should say the beginning tiers of business, and it helps them break through those glass ceilings, right? Where they can say, okay, like, I don't just want to fix the stuff that's bad. I want to improve the things that are already good. I want to set a new standard on what that stuff is. And, for you guys to focus on, customer retention, right? It's like, okay, customer wants to cancel. They call in, who do they talk to, right? Who do we have them working with? What are our SOPs on what we can offer? Do we have a standardized process for the communication that we have for these customers? And if they do need to cancel, then where does that reason go? Like, was it a service related issue? Do we talk to the service team about it? Who do we follow up with? And then what's our process and procedure to get these customers back on board, right? Win back campaigns are something that it's honestly not that complicated, but it takes some effort, takes some action, which we talked about before. And I think a lot of pest control operators don't really put effort into it. Customer cancels and they're thinking, well, there's my opportunity, right? I blew that opportunity, and maybe they call us back, maybe they don't. But we do these win back campaigns for us by email and some other stuff every month. And I'm always shocked just how many customers will just call us back and re-sign up for service based on these win back campaigns. And I'm like, that was an email that was free. Like, I got that customer back for free, so
hit it at the right time with the right pain point. And I feel that's kind of our society in general is so fast paced, and it's immediate gratification, and it's immediately on to the next thing. And too often do we forget to go back and relook at the things in the past, meaning a customer, right? It's always just next customer, next acquisition, whatever we can get, instead of looking for opportunity here with your current customer base, whether it be cross-selling or win back campaigns with your current customer base that maybe you've lost a little bit of.
Dude, 100%. It's that bucket that you're trying to fill up, and you got holes in the bucket that need to be patched before you just keep filling water in it, right?
Yep.
So, dude, it just makes so much sense. And I know we're kind of short on time here, but if you could think of, obviously you guys, your size and your scale is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the guys that we end up having listen to the podcast. But if you were going to give some advice, just some advice, some of the stuff that we've talked about, to kind of a new guy, somebody who wants to scale their business, who wants to get to the point where you are maybe someday, in the next 40 years, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what comes to mind for me is two things. Is first and foremost, at any business, including pest control, is identifying what your differentiator is, right? In the pest control industry, there's so many companies and so many great companies inside of our industry. And each one of them have a unique differentiator, right? A unique offering that they can provide a customer. And so when you can truly have a unique differentiator that sets you apart, that's an easy sale. That's something that's easy to market. It's easy to relate to from a consumer standpoint. And so for me, I think that's very important, especially as new business starting. And number two is truly identify who your customer base is. I've seen a lot of companies too often try to capture everything, right? And not all business is good business. There's business, quite honestly, that we turn down, on a daily basis that's not a good fit for us. It's not going to lead to good profitability, or it's not going to lead to good retention. So A, identifying what your differentiator is, and then B, identifying what your market is, what your niche and what your customer base look like, and truly going after that customer base is much easier than trying to capture it all.
Dude, so good, right? I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Figure out what makes you different, find that differentiator, and figure out who your customers are, right? Who do you want to focus on? And then take action to get those customers, dude. So good. Austin, you're awesome, man. I can't tell you how much it benefits, us and other PCOs out there to hear you talk about your operation and just to kind of get an idea of the scale of your operation, which has been so awesome. So thank you for that. And for the guys out there listening, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you definitely join our BugBucks Facebook group. That's BUGBUX, where you can get information like we're talked about today when it comes to scaling, growing your pest control company. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll get Austin back on here to give us some more tips and tricks on how we can build your company into a 35,000 customer, 200 employee company. So thanks, Austin. Appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and love to come back another time.
That would be great. And to everybody else out there, keep growing those pest control companies. We'll catch you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.